Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking your seats. Allow me to introduce myself first. I'm Taghreed Jaber, the Regional Director for the Middle East and North Africa at Penal Reform International. It's a great honor to have you all here with us. And I would like to take the opportunity to welcome you on behalf of Penal Reform International and thank you for participating at our Congress. And also on behalf of the steering committee of the Fifth World Congress on Justice with Children. We thank you all for traveling and to take the time to be with us. And if you don't mind to use your translation, I'll switch to Arabic a little bit. إنه لمن دواعي سروري أن أرحب.
It is a pleasure being here and welcome to this session. It is a high-level meeting, a high-level congress. As organizers, we have decided to begin our debates shedding light on the main topic of our congress. It is a very important topic, and I'm speaking about child-centered justice. It is a fundamental goal to all institutions that work in justice with children. And the goal is to attain the goals using all the resources available. I'm from Jordan, and we always say that we are a young society. I know that being a young society is a treasure. It is a very important treasure that our country has. We can make the most out of it. We can invest in new generations. And this is the baseline for our philosophy. I'm speaking about the importance of investing in children. We need to also create networks so that we can have a judicial system that is a child-centered judicial system. Now, allow me to welcome all of you. I will be moderating this session, and I have my friend Drov. He is one of the young active leaders in this movement. Also, Drov is going to help me moderate this session. So, please.
Hello, everyone. I'm a bit nervous, but I'm Dhruv, and I'm part of the Child and Youth Advisory Committee. Taghreed talked about a young society. Well, we are the young society, and we are here. We are holding space, and so I'm really looking forward to co-moderating this panel with you, Taghreed. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Drov. I'm honored to have you with me. And now I will continue in English. Thank you very much. And to start with, the inspiration, the ideas, the talks that we're going to hear from our leaders and speakers and young people and the young voices that we have here, we would like to please to share a message from Mr. Michael Mager, the European Commissioner for Democracy, Justice and Rule of Law. As many of you know, that Commissioner Mager plays a key role in upholding the EU's core values, including the rights of every child to access to justice, protection, and participation. Please, let's hear his message.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honoured to address you on a matter of great importance. Child-centred justice is not merely an ideal, it is a necessity. Any child may find themselves in contact with the justice system. Children are vulnerable, and it is crucial that they understand decisions and actions affecting them. Our justice systems must rise to the occasion, genuinely serving children's needs and ensuring that every child feels seen, heard, and valued. Every child has the right to be protected and treated with dignity. Child-centred justice is a principle that is central to the EU's rule of law and fundamental rights agenda, not a mere slogan, but a standard. This means placing the rights, needs, and voices of children at the heart of every decision, policy, and courtroom. It means actively listening to children, understanding their needs and views, and ensuring their participation is meaningful, safe, and respected. Involving children in decision-making is a fundamental obligation, not an option. Children should also be empowered to claim their rights through safe, inclusive, and age-appropriate systems, including justice systems. We must invest in alternatives to detention, prioritise rehabilitation over punishment, and ensure that justice systems align with the best interests of the child. Tackling systemic inequalities that lead to marginalised children being disproportionately involved with justice systems is vital. Our efforts must also extend to protecting children affected by conflict and displacement, where justice systems are the weakest and children are more vulnerable to violence, exclusion, and rights violations. The EU's strong legal framework promotes child-sensitive procedures with specialised support and training for professionals interacting with children to ensure fairness, safety, and protection. Furthermore, the EU strategy on the rights of the child and the Commission's recommendation on integrated child protection systems commit to eliminating all forms of violence within justice systems, calling for child-friendly justice that is accessible, inclusive, and empowering, protection from all forms of violence, including within institutions, and participation of children in shaping the systems that serve them. Placing the rights and welfare of children at the heart of our justice systems has been a significant priority for the European Union, especially in criminal matters where stakes are high. The vulnerability of children in criminal proceedings, whether as victims, suspects, or accused, is acute. Robust safeguards are therefore essential to ensure their best interests are prioritised. Central to this effort are the EU's Victims' Rights Directive and the Procedural Safeguards Directive, which ensure that children can exercise their rights effectively. Our commitment to child victims is unwavering, and with our recent proposal to strengthen the Victims' Rights Directive, we want to ensure better support and protection. Looking ahead, we remain focused on enhancing child-friendly conditions, integrated support, and campaigns on child victimisation, and preparations for the forthcoming EU strategy on victims' rights are underway, promising continued attention to these crucial issues. Today and every day, we must ensure that no child is left unseen or unheard and that their dignity is preserved. We are working closely with Member States, professionals, international organisations, civil society, and importantly, with children themselves, to make child-centred justice a tangible reality. Let's sustain our commitment to this shared endeavour. Thank you.
A great message, thank you. And now, it's with great respect I introduce a leading voice in the global movement for children's rights, Professor Anne Skelton. Professor Anne is the immediate past chairperson of the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child, where she helped shape international standards and ensure that children's voices are embedded in the global policy. We are also especially grateful to her role as the head of the scientific committee of this Congress. Her guidance, insight, and dedication have been invaluable in shaping the vision and depth of our program. On behalf of the organizations, I sincerely thank you, Anne, for all of your great support and help. Please join me in welcoming her to introduce the theme of the child-centered justice in today's global context. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. What a fantastic event. So many contacts, so many people working on issues of children and justice, and it's great to all be together so that we can think together about how to do this work better. I'm not going to repeat things that others have said, so I'm going to just focus in on a few really crucial things that I think, as the scientific committee, we wanted to make sure that the conceptualization of child-centered justice went further than how we have been thinking, perhaps before, when we talk about children and justice. You know, we very often think about children and justice in relation to children who find themselves in justice systems. In other words, they may be victims, they may be witnesses, they may be offenders, and we heard Melody's story today that brought all of those ideas and the roles of those players to our attention. We also find children in civil justice systems and in family matters and care and protection matters, perhaps in other narrow instances as well. But what we are really encouraging everyone to think about is to have a conceptualization of justice that sees children moving to being the initiators of cases, of course, assisted by adults, but bringing cases or bringing forward complaints to mechanisms which might be non-judicial or judicial, in which they claim their rights. And that is the full range of rights, all the rights under the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And so we see children moving from passive recipients of an adjusted justice system to truly being at the center of seeking access to justice and effective remedies. And that phrase that I've just said is the title of the Committee on the Rights of the Child's next general comment, which is currently out for comment. Please all comment. It's really, really important that the Committee on the Rights of the Child receives information from people working on the ground, from practitioners, from young people who have had experiences in these systems, so that we really, can make sure that the committee has the full picture as they go forward to set these very important standards for all of us then to implement at the country level. And perhaps just one last thing that I would want to add is that we also need to think more broadly than just criminal justice, civil justice, and the ways that we've been thinking. We want to see pathways of access to justice being built from the ground so that children can find accessible ways to raise their concerns. But if children do not receive justice at the local level or the national level, then we do say it is a right for children to be able to go further than that, and it is an obligation of states to ensure that that is enabled. And so we might ultimately see children taking cases, and we do see children taking cases to regional bodies, regional courts, to international bodies like the Committee on the Rights of the Child under its communications procedure. But also, if we think about the injustice that's going on in the world today, we must think more broadly about the International Criminal Court the International Court of Justice. And we have seen that too. We've seen an expansion. We've seen the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court issuing warrants of arrest relating to the movement of children from Ukraine to Russia. And of course, we've seen the case in the International Court of Justice regarding the impact of war against children, among others, in Gaza. So this is this much broader conceptualization of child-centered justice that we encourage you all to think about, to talk about over these 2 days, and to make sure that as we go forward, we can implement that new general comment in so many different ways and in so many different contexts around the world. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anne. So from passive recipients to active participants and partners in shaping the future. And this lays the foundation for our next speaker, which an honor and privilege to welcome her to our panel, Ms. Maria Louise Colero-Pereca. She is the former president of Malta. Your Excellency, your enduring commitments toward children's rights have been nothing short of inspirational. And it has been an inspirational for me personally. It's been clear evident through your great work at national level and internationally. And allow me to quote one of your quotes in which you said, children and young people are experts when it comes to their own experiences, ideas, aspirations, and needs of children must be listened to and addressed. You also said a very important quote where you said, you have to listen to the children. They might not have the vocabulary, but they have the vision. Your Excellency, how can we place a children's vision, aspiration, and ideas that you have just mentioned at the center of justice? Please let us know.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to commend the organizers of this 5th Global Congress, but also this amazing crowd of children's rights defenders. This is truly great, and I do hope that this Congress will convey a strong message, not just in favor of children, but standing up together for what is right and what is just and equal for all children in the world. So, yes, child participation has to be at the heart of everything. If we truly want to safeguard children's fundamental rights, I always consider Article 12 of the UNCRC as the gateway to all rights. Because if a child can have the safe space to speak, then we know exactly what we are doing wrong, what we are doing right, and we don't need to amplify the voice of the child, because every child has a voice. It's us. If we muffle that voice and then pretend that we are, really best placed to amplify that voice. So if we look at children, all children, my emphasis is on all, because we tend to be speaking many a time about children who have justice systems. Like the children in Gaza, they don't even have a roof over their heads. Even more so, they don't have the slightest idea of what a justice system is. They don't have access to international criminal courts. They don't have access to anything. And like the children of Gaza, there are children in Sudan, and we can continue and continue. So, yes, I agree with Anne. We need to look at the complexity of justice, not just the justice system. Now, we need to look at children as rights holders. If we start from there, the first step, then we can understand where their place is. It's not consulting. They should be shaping legislation, shaping policies, and shaping procedures. I had a very first-hand experience when I was Minister for Family and Social Solidarity. Besides, one of my very first steps that I took was appointing a National Commission for Children's Rights in Malta. But today we have also a minister ministry that is dedicated to children and social policy. I was in the process of developing the Children's Protection Act, and I did not bring in the legal gurus and the legal professionals. I started with really consulting children, and it was from there that with the whole process of child participation that we developed the Children's Act. It was the very first at the time. I did not see it through because then I was appointed president of Malta, but it happens and it can happen, even with our children's strategy against poverty. It was children themselves that we invited to speak and tell us what poverty is all about. This was, thinking of child poverty, to address that, etc. So, yes, if we look at children as rights holders and create a safe space, the right environment for them, they are really experts. And I can, at least from my long experience in public life and in many roles, children have always been my experts. The way they look at things, the 360 degrees that they look at issues and matters is incredible. I never stop to be overwhelmed with what I hear from children. But let's not take child participation as a token way of doing things. Let's have meaningful child participation. Child participation doesn't mean bringing children in a room and putting them around the table and asking them 20 questions. That's not child participation. That's putting children on the spot. Child participation is a science in itself, and there's a whole methodology. In fact, my foundation, the Foundation for the Wellbeing of Society in Malta, has developed a very strong child participation toolkit, which was really tested both academically from child to children's perspective, but also a hands-on qualitative approach. So yes, child participation has to be key if we really want child-centered justice systems, and we need to really believe that children not only can contribute, but have a right to contribute to whatever affects their lives. We know what we should do. I mean, we are repeating, we've been repeating for the last nearly 40 years now, since the UNCRC came into being. It's the most widely ratified treaty, and we still go on and on. It is not wealth that we need. It's not wealth that we need. It's political will, and through political will, with a holistic approach where we bring all stakeholders around the table, government, civil society, organizations, academics, everybody around the table, but the protagonists have to be children. And then, yes, we would have child-centered, not just only justice systems, but we can have child-centered in all the political aspects possible. It is not a privilege, it's a necessity, and it's children's rights.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency. Political will is key. We need presidents like you who can champion that cause, actually, and leaders of parliaments and legislators who can work with us to do that. And this would lead us to hear also from another an influencer over the whole of Europe, actually, Ms. Maria Rotinian, and she's the Director General for Democracy and Human Dignity at the Council of Europe. How are you benefiting from the real experts, as Her Excellency mentioned them, and the Council of Europe and promoting the child-centered justice? Please let us know. I think it's working.
Thank you.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So this works. Thank you very much. And I also wanted to start just by commending the impressive leadership of the former president of Malta, because I think it's fruits of everything that she has done. We are seeing it now really also at the Council of Europe level. So at the Council of Europe, so the 46 member state organization, intergovernmental organization, we are of course guided by the principles of that justice must serve children, not the other way around, no matter what is the type of proceedings that they are involved or what is the role that they are involved in this proceeding. And of course we are guided by the UNCRC as well and the best interest of the child. At the Council of Europe, it's not something nice to have, but it's something that we have realized that we must have it, and we are trying to introduce it in all the, let's say, the thread of work that we do on children's rights, but in all the other areas as well. And actually 15 years ago, the Council of Europe adopted guidelines for child-friendly justice. And there has been a lot of progress that we have been seeing around, but we have seen that the situations are challenging, and we are now reviewing them and try to make them, if possible, time-proof. Of course, there are many changes that we cannot predict today, but this is the work that we are now underdoing. And it's important, we were mentioned also before, that children are going through different processes, whether it's in the separation or care proceedings. And we have now very recently, actually only last week, adopted 2 recommendations which are especially giving guidance on the situations of separation, how to make sure that children's best interest is taken on board, and same thing in the care situation. So this is the most recent work from the Council of Europe. But now, having listened also to Melody, I think what is important to underline that we have now, maybe over 10 years now, been trying to support member states to put in place Parnahus, or child-friendly places, and we have been supporting a number of Council of Europe member states in putting these one-roof places in place where you can actually, the child can have access to all the services and not to repeat what happened to them in several times. And we have seen that this is one of the solutions, certainly, and not only supporting member states, we have now started work to prepare a standard, a recommendation, so that we can give a very clear guidance to member states how to put this Parnahus type of system in place.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A great set of rules and work, and since 2010, the landmark, the guidelines on child-friendly justice has been guiding the work of many of us globally. And now we go to the global context, from Europe to the whole world. UNICEF, working in more than 160 countries around the world. Ms. Shima Sangiota, the Director of Child Protection at UNICEF. And Shima, in 2021, UNICEF launched at the World Congress on Justice with Children, Reimagining Justice for Children agenda. And at that time, we all looked at it as a bold agenda, you know, a very powerful agenda, and we have been trying to work all of these years towards its implementation. So why don't you let us know, how does this agenda promote child-centered justice, and what changed since 2021?
Thank you. As soon as I can get this working.
I think it's working now, right? Yes.
Thank you. And I do also want to start by thanking the government of Spain and all the organizers for championing this. Because in the world of today, there really needs to be loud voices for children, and for children's rights, and for child justice. So this is an opportune time, and this is the time where I think we need to get louder and firmer and more clear about what we want to put on the table for children, their rights and justice. So between 2021 and now, with the vision, with the Reimagine Justice for Children agenda, the vision was really the story that Melody said today, because it really is supposed to be for all children, whether they're victims, whether they're in criminal or administrative or civil proceedings, children who come into any kind of contact with the justice sector, so that they can have access and they can be protected. And one of the things that was very important and continues to be so in that agenda is that it emphasizes the state's accountability. And we have seen progress. I would love to see more. And what we have seen is it's about states taking those accountabilities seriously, looking at the human rights of children, recognizing that actually the states have a role, but so do all of us, that we have a role to play. And it goes up, starts from the state, comes down to our own individual accountabilities. That really was the vision of it, to drive progress and to achieve more. And when I hear and listen to the previous speakers, each of who have driven, both with the position or the office that you had, but also with your personal commitments, that really is where we wanted to take it. But what was most needed and most important was to have children at the center of that agenda, where children themselves call for those justice reforms. So in order to do that, children with lived experiences, and I look at you again, Melody, children with lived experiences, not just of having been a victim, but of the entire justice system, should actually participate in the design, as you yourself said just now, really in designing, in implementing, in monitoring laws and justice programs. They should be at the table with us. And this is because it's not just about listening to them about their rights, but they also must be empowered. They must be empowered to know what it is and how to claim their rights. So because of that, this agenda actually has 4 components. The first one is based on education, and the previous speakers have spoken about that. Anne spoke about it very succinctly. It's about children being educated about what those rights are. The second one is about expression. They should be empowered enough to express what they would like to see. The third one is actually access to remedy, and that's where our accountabilities come in, state accountabilities, and each one of us, how are we ensuring that they do have that access? And then finally, it's about safety. It's about feeling safe within that system. If you do speak up, are you safe? Are you protected? And it's not just about being safe and protected, it's also about perceiving safety for children. So those are the elements, and what we've seen is it really has called for and has, in many cases, we've seen more commitment in addressing discrimination of all forms, right? Whether it is racial, whether it is children's sexual orientation, this is what it calls for, because children are overrepresented in this discrimination. And what we've seen is, primarily because of children's efforts themselves, we have seen empowered children across the globe demanding those rights. They're asking to be heard. They're telling us what is okay and what is not okay. And they're demanding social justice, political justice, climate. I mean, when I listen to the kids from island states, the small island states, and they're talking about climate justice for themselves and their rights, they've become very, very vocal. So I think we've got numbers, and this isn't the numbers thing. We will be launching data tomorrow, but you will see from the numbers that there has been progress with this agenda. I don't want to take up the time. There's tomorrow for that. There has been improvements. We've seen a reduction of children children whose liberty have been taken. We've seen children being, more programs for deviation and so on. So there is progress, and then the numbers will speak for itself tomorrow. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaima. Actually, thank you for this positive note that we all need in such a hard time and difficult time. And you talked about empowered children, and we have many of them with us, between us, working with us in this Congress. In 2018, when we started that partnership with TDH and organized the Congress in Paris, the title was Justice for Children. While in 2021, we said with children. And we had a number of children participating at that one. But in this Congress happened and was organized in very close consultation with those children. They were part of the decision-taking process in every single aspect of this event that we are all attending over the past 3 days. And we have one of the loud voices with us and one of the empowered children, Eileen. You heard everyone and what they said. Give us your reflection and what you think.
Oh, thank you so much. I think
it's working.
Thank you so much. Good evening for all of you. Thank you for those who are here and for those who are watching us online. I am Eileen, and I am a Child and Youth Advisory Committee member. I am 16 years old, and 6 years ago, I started involving myself into activating. I started in advisory groups such as UNICEF Advisory Group, and thanks to all the experiences that I've got, I can tell today that from my experience, it is crucial that juvenile justice policies are not only designed for young people, but also with our active participation. We need spaces where our voices are not only heard, but also that are considered in decision-making. Moreover, it is essential that policies are inclusive, considering the diverse identities and contexts of young people. By this, I mean policies that young people are not seen as an homogeneous group. We should not think of just one type of youth when focusing on this age group. There are many different situations with different needs. We have repeatedly seen the case where when we talk about juvenile justice, the solution seems to be just made for a single profile of youth without taking into account how different our characteristics are between one and another. And we have also seen the case where the system, instead of protecting us, it just deeps the violence that we have already experienced. Therefore, I firmly believe that justice for young people cannot be conceived only from those who are in their desks that are far away from our reality. It must be built with us without just thinking of the adult's perspective, because no one knows better our reality than those who experience it in first hand. So we think that it's not enough just to listen to us. We must involucrate young people. That is why I have something that worries me a lot, and there's a reality that lots of young people face today, and it's that the justice systems often punish the lack of opportunities, punish being different, as if it was a choice. That is why, for me, talking about juvenile justice is not only about how we treat young people that got in conflict with the law, it's about how they got there. What failed before, what state was absent, what school was not safe, what public space did not allow us to be free, what prejudice pointed at us from an early age. Real justice begins before the judicial system. It begins when all our rights are guaranteed. At a time when justice arrives after the harm, then it must be restorative and it must be reparative. Therefore, it must offer paths for young people to the future, because young people are not the problem, but part of the solution. We do not need more punishment, but more opportunities. I firmly believe we must advocate for a justice that supports us, that understands that growing up is not always easy, and that when we fail, it doesn't mean that we are beyond help. A justice that sees us as stakeholders and right holders and capable of learning and contributing. As a final point, I would just wanted to say that when young people speak in these spaces, we are not asking for permission, we are just exercising our right to participate and to have an opinion. We are demanding dignified justice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Reality reflection and lived experience and justice system that responds to the individual cases is key issues that should be taken into consideration. Thank you for that. And now allow me to hand over to my co-moderator and our other expert, Dhruv, who will lead the second round of questions to our distinguished experts. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Tagreed. Previously, Barbara talked about how moving from child-friendly to a child-centered justice system represents a fundamental shift. We have Aileen talking about what effective justice looks like for young people. In this round, we'll discuss some enablers, challenges, and solutions that entail this shift. So, let's begin first with Marie-Louise. Your Excellency, what do you think are some opportunities and barriers to achieving a rights-based, child-centered justice approach globally?
We're not listening to children, and I think Irene has mentioned two very important points. One, that when we speak of children and young people, we're not speaking of a homogeneous group, but we need to remember each and every aspect of this diverse group. For example, what about children with disabilities? What about children migration? What about LGBTI trans children? There are so many aspects that we need to, so it's not an overarching situation, and that's why it's so very important that we have meaningful child participation, because if we do have meaningful child participation, we have to ensure that everybody is heard, listened to, and also acting on the aspirations and the aspirations of children and young people. Another point which is so very important that Irene mentioned is that it's not the justice process, which is what led to that. What led to that situation, and that is why we need to turn to a restorative approach and a healing approach rather than a punitive approach. This is so very important. It should be a healing approach. No child is born a criminal. No child is born a terrorist. No child is born with any negative implications. It's our influences as adults that will form children. And therefore, we need to really understand and keep this in mind all the time to ensure that we are really doing justice. Justice doesn't mean only in a justice system, but doing justice as it should be. First and foremost, we need to ensure that we all believe, all stakeholders believe, that children are our experts on their own rights, so that child participation is true and meaningful, and that we can really feel proud that we have brought into being the UNCRC. We only mention it conveniently. That UNCRC, it's not just transposing it into our national legislation, but we need to actually implement it, and implement it on national levels, but also on an international level. We have this sort of approach to harmonize, because UNCRC harmonizes the framework. But then we need to ensure that we effectively put it into being. And first and foremost, if we really want to put the UNCRC effectively into being, then yes, wars and conflicts shouldn't be part of this situation, because now with what is happening and has been happening in Gaza, as I look at it, and I am very direct, and I want to be direct to be very understood. We have a global anarchy. Nobody is safe now, especially our children. So we need to really put things into the right perspective and call things by their name. We need to call, you have appealed to us all because we need to be stronger, louder, and everything. Yes, we need to be stronger together and call things by their name and be brave, just like the Minister of Spain this morning. I really commend her strength and her courage to speak up in this manner. We shouldn't be afraid if we are really all children's rights defenders here. And if we, all of us, and all those who are following us, really we are together and more, I'm sure there are much more people out there that can be together, we would definitely ensure that UNCRC of over 35 years ago will become a reality, not just a beautiful piece of paper. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marie-Louise. And I just want to, before I move to the next question, just hold space for this thought. There are children in wars. There are some of my peers who could not make it here because of visa issues. There are so many justice issues that children are facing around the world right now. And at the heart of all of this is a justice system that cannot, support us and is not child-centered. And so, Maria, the question that I have for you is, what are the challenges, what are the most outstanding challenges that you believe are at the heart of our justice system that make it so inaccessible for us?
Well, if I have to select maybe one most pressing, I would say, is the use of technologies that children, of course, do, and often without any supervision or preparation. And I think this is something that has dramatic consequences because, for example, by access that they have on pornographic sites that are often very hard porno, and that leads into them imitating behaviors that they see online. And I think this is a challenge that we are trying to also address at the Council of how we protect children from going into this type of behavior and how to educate them about appropriate behavior in sexual relationships. So I think this is the technology is certainly one of the things, and also AI, because sometimes maybe unintentionally, the AI allows them to develop images of their friends, nude images, for example, which then get them into trouble. So I think we have to protect children from using these, and so that they understand what are the risks in there. But I could not agree more that I think child participation, we hear so much about it. It has to, I mean, it's in the political agenda, but it has to become real. It has to become something that is normal, that we do everything we do, not just things when they explicitly concern children, but we have to involve them in all the different actions that we do, and that's what we are trying to do at the Council of Europe now very much, to really mainstream the child participation and all the work that we do, and also the youth participation at that matter.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And we talk about opportunities, we talk about barriers, but it's also important to see the work that is being done, especially as children, to make this information accessible to everyone. So, Seema, what are some key accelerators and proven solutions to achieve a child-centered justice, in your opinion?
Thank you, Dhruv. We've learned some things, and very happy to share here. I think one of the main accelerators has been a functioning child protection system strengthening approach that countries have taken on. And, we've been doing child protection system strengthening work for about 2 decades now. But I think we've got a better understanding of all those components, and where countries, governments and partners have taken this approach, we've really seen it accelerating that. As a child protection systems approach that actually looks at the complementarity of the justice sector with the social service sector together as a continuum, that is where we see that strong collaboration with other sectors then, with the health, education, with social protection, all of those coming together as part of that system really does accelerate it. It makes it easier to access and to respond as well. The other one is about data, because we have been collecting data, governments have been collecting data, we're learning from those. We're looking, constantly analyzing and learning. And as I said, tomorrow we will be presenting global data on the number of children in detention, although this number is still just the tip of an iceberg, because data on children in the justice system, including children deprived of liberty, is a continuing challenge to gather. Some governments feel this is data that they cannot share, will not share, and the truth of it is, often for many governments, these children are actually invisible. They actually don't see them because they're in detention, and so there is no real understanding of that. So what we have seen is actually reporting then becomes a challenge. Children themselves can't report because they're not empowered to report. So while we've made some progress in duty bearers and having the systems in place, we still need to do much more in ensuring that children are part of the process, children have the knowledge, but are also are empowered enough to claim that. So that's the other. And then aside from that legal empowerment and child participation, which everyone has spoken to, I think one of the things that really needs to be done and has worked well for some countries is investing in legal assistance. That is a key accelerator. Oftentimes, actually, lawyers, paralegals are really do not really have the understanding of child rights and child justice and what that means. So really ensuring that there is this legal assistance that is actually based on technical, on the technical side of it, will enable children to claim their rights. I think that's extremely important. And then finally, as a proven solution, what I'm very pleased to share, and again, not to go too much into it, is that we will be launching a package of technical guidance documenting some of these promising practices on every component of the Reimagine Justice for Children agenda. So all those 6 components. And together with the UN Task Force on Children Deprived of Liberty, coordinated by Najat, who's sitting there, we will be launching this, and it will actually help understand what are those good practices in non-custodial measures. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question. This information, would it also be child-friendly so that it's accessible to children as well?
So currently we are launching it, and then it is also to kind of regionally to try and make it in a way that it's child-friendly and accessible for kids. So there's also the language thing, but also easier to understand. Yes, thank you.
That's really nice to know. And now, moving on to Aileen, let's keep aside everything that the adults have said on this panel and hear from you. What is it that, as a young person, as a child, you feel that adults and institutions need to do to support young people in justice reforms?
Thank you. Thank you, Drew, for your question. From my experience, the first and most essential thing that adults and institutions should do in order to support youth in justice reform is to genuinely listen to us. I mentioned this in my first speech, talking about that listening is not enough, that we have to give us the space to participate. But given the currently situation, maybe even reaching that first step, truly listening, could remain a challenge. And that's where the work needs to begin. Listening shouldn't be a passive act. It should be respectful, it should be intentional, and it should be consistent. Too often we see decisions being made about us, but rarely with us. This leads to solutions that don't reflect our real needs or experiences. For instance, I've seen many cases when a town wants to build a new park or a youth center that are supposedly designed for youth people. But during the planning, our input is never requested. Nobody asks what we think, what we need, or what will make us feel safe and welcome in those spaces. And the result is always the same: projects that miss the mark and feel disconnected from our actual lives. That's a huge missed opportunity, not just to create better spaces, but to also build a culture of collaboration. Just to finish, supporting youth in justice reform doesn't mean speaking for us. It means standing up beside us, opening doors and sharing the power that you've got. We don't just want to be the subject of policies, we want to be partners in creating them. True support starts with listening and continues with giving us a chance to lead them. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aileen. And that brings us into a full circle. We had Anne talking in the beginning about how children are no longer passive recipients. We are actively leading our rights, even when we do not know the rights. We do not know that it's written in our constitutions. We are leading it in different places. And coming back to you again, based on all the different things that were said here, what would be your reflections? What would be your main ideas and takeaways?
I think I would just encourage everyone to let this conference jumpstart our imaginations about what access to justice and effective remedy can really mean. I do have huge respect for those people who work every day in complaints mechanisms, in courts, trying to assist, stand next to children who are individually affected. But if we want to change systems, we are going to need to think bigger. And I think that's what we've got to collectively really think about. If we are dissatisfied because the state won't make the numbers of children deprived of liberty available, well, they have an obligation to do so. We must hold them accountable. And we can use, together with children, we can demand that we get those answers. And then having those answers, we can demand that those numbers be reduced. So even the common problems that we've been trying to solve in the justice system for so long, we can use access to justice to get an effective remedy to solve those problems too, amongst many others.
Thank you. And it's really amazing because there are two sides that I clearly see now. There's one where children, young people are organizing on their own, and now there are also institutions and people in power, like you, who are willing to support children and young people as we fight with the unfair justice systems. To end this part, we have a video message by Mary Beth Goodman, who's the Deputy Secretary General of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So.
Dear Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, and esteemed participants, as we close today's session, we do so with a clear understanding. Justice systems around the world are still falling short for too many, especially for children and young people. With children comprising 1/3 of the global population and over half in many countries, the need is urgent. In the European Union alone, around 2.5 million children interact with the justice system every year, a figure that underscores the scale and importance of building systems that serve, protect, and hear them. Despite some progress, access remains unequal. Processes are often too complex to navigate, and important voices, particularly those of youth, are still missing from the design of solutions. The challenge ahead is to close these gaps. At the OECD, our Child and Youth Governance Agenda recognizes justice as a foundational dimension for children and young people's effective development alongside education, health, housing, and safety. Closing these gaps demands more than intent. It requires focused action. Here are 3 priorities that guide OECD members in shaping the path toward child and youth-friendly justice systems. First, creating justice systems and institutions that reflect the voices and best interests of children. There is a growing recognition that children are not merely recipients of justice, but active rights holders. Recent OECD legal instruments acknowledge the specific needs of children and young people and call for tailored, developmentally appropriate responses. This is especially critical during the transitional period from childhood to early adulthood. Young people aged 15 to 21 often fall through institutional gaps, no longer protected as children, but not yet fully equipped to engage in the adult system. A truly inclusive approach must account for overlaps, transitions, and evolving capacities across age groups. The OECD Child-Friendly Justice Framework and our forthcoming recommendation on promoting child well-being in times of profound change urge countries to design justice systems that ensure continuity, care, and empowerment from early childhood through to adulthood and maturity. Second, governance plays a vital role in enabling child-friendly justice. Addressing the cross-sectorial issues faced by young people requires whole-of-government collaboration, from upstream policy coherence to downstream service integration. We must build justice systems that evolve with the needs of young people, functioning as a continuum, not a cliff edge. Transparent and coordinated governance calls for a justice system more attuned to the needs, life stages, and circumstances of young people and children. Third, we must measure what matters. Advancing child and youth-centered justice requires data, evidence, and rights-based principles. Too many barriers remain hidden, from complexity and discrimination to the lack of access to information or voice. Investing in robust indicators like legal needs surveys is key to revealing these gaps and measuring whether systems are truly meeting the needs of young people in a fair and effective way. Indicators are more than technical tools. They are mechanisms of accountability to ensure that justice reforms deliver meaningful outcomes for children in real lives. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, today's discussions are an opportunity to learn from one another, to reflect on what is working and raise our collective ambition. I would like to commend the organizers, partners, and previous speakers for their vision and leadership. The OECD is ready to collaborate with you through knowledge sharing, policy dialogue, and the promotion of evidence-based youth and child-friendly solutions. A people-centered future requires us to bridge the gap and build a justice system that supports every stage of life. Thank you.
I thank Mary for that amazing message, and I pass the floor now to Tagreed to help us in this session.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. On behalf of everyone, I would like to thank the distinguished speakers and experts on all the views and ideas that they shared with us. And I want to thank you that we stuck to the time and finished in 70 minutes, which is an achievement, a good one since the morning. And now, without any further ado, the second plenary session that is going to be now, it's actually part of the, as you see in the title of our Congress, we've chosen to focus on 2 issues, the child-centered justice And the other topic is about preventing violence against the children. And that will be the topic of our next session that will be led by a distinguished expert, Najat, for her session. Thank you very much for your time and moderation. And thank you, Drove. Did great.
See? Okay.
Right, let's take a seat, please. We're about to kick off the second round table of today. Don't forget to pick up a headset at the entrance of the room if you need translation. Let's all please take a seat. Oh, I'm just about to introduce our moderator for the next round table. Let's all please take a seat, and if you don't mind, keep quiet. Our reception is coming up, so you'll get a chance to talk to whoever you want then. Let's all please take a seat and quiet down. Thank you very much. So, as I was saying earlier, we're about to kick off the second round table of today's event, where we'll be discussing... Sorry, once again, please, let's show a little respect to those of us working here. I understand there's lots of us in the room. I know there's lots of people you know and you want to talk to them. I realize that, but please, let's show a little respect. Our speakers deserve to be listened to. We're here to talk about human rights, to lead by example. So this very interesting roundtable is all going to be about preventing and responding to violence affecting children in justice systems. It will be moderated by Najat Mahler, Special Representative of the UN Secretary General, Violence Against Children. She's one of the most respected voices in the world when it comes to children's protection. A big round of applause. Thank you very much for being here.
So I know that it's the end of the day. You are dead. And I promise you to make this session very interactive, short, and straight to the point. So I am sorry for all people who are here, but really, very frankly, to move ahead. And I have the pleasure to co-moderate, this session with Lux, who is on my left, and she is a strong youth advisor. And in this session, we discuss a lot about, justice for children and so on. And we were discussing, and I remember, what a youth told. We don't need people who are behind their desk and, doing, laws and so on. Currently, we are going to speak about really access and implementation to justice and how the justice system really prevents and address violence against children. So we will be very practical and straight to the point. For this, I have, sorry if Bernardo Stadelman, Deputy Director of the Federal Office of Justice, Switzerland. Annie DeVos, President. I know that we have no time, but you can applaud. We have Anne DeVos, President of the Confederation of European Probation and Director General for the Wallonia-Brussels Federation, Ministry of Justice, Belgium. Justice Saeed Mansour Ali Shah, Supreme Court, Pakistan. Alexander Banchuk, Deputy Ministry of Justice, Ukraine. Maria Teresa Gisbert, Head of Children's Unit, Attorney General Office, Spain. And from Colombia, Astrid Eliana Cáceres Cárdenas, Director General of el Instituto Colombiano de Bienestar Familiar. So we have a lot of people. So I will really start, asking, sorry if it's not in the order, but to start, regarding, I will start by Switzerland. Et je switch en français. Ravi de vous avoir à bord. Et on parle.
It is a pleasure to have you on board. We speak a lot about practices that you apply in Switzerland, and what are the digital tools that you use to support children. You have the floor. Thank you very much. I will speak in French, if you allow me. It would be the first time this evening. Well, it is certainly a challenge. We have new technologies, and these are a very important topic. We have carried out a study, a specific application, digital application, in children in schools. And this app help children and young people to manage their own actions. It allows it to have a global vision. Children and young people learn. And now all this with the support of a professional that has been trained to do so. Well, this is just an experimental phase of the project. Professionals say that this tool, this program, helps solve conflict resolutions and social competencies for children and young people. And young people have told us that they do certain exercises, for example, breathing exercises and so on and so forth. And doing these exercises help them manage their stress and understand themselves better. So this is done together with professionals and young people. Now, something important is that young people need to be accompanied when they use this app, so they don't use it alone or by themselves. They have someone to support them. Now, so that these tools are efficient, they have to be used with children, with young people, not for children, for young people. Also, we have supported another project. There was a study carried out on children. And we have obtained data, and we have developed an online program in order to allow the socio-educational staff to identify risk factors and therefore improve a positive development in young people. Now, this tool is widely used, and as I said, these are some of the experiments that we are currently developing, and we are learning a lot from that.
Lux has not prepared anything, so she will react spontaneously to what each participant is telling. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Okay, I wanted to ask you a question, actually. Is it okay if I ask in English? I can understand the French, can't really speak it. But if you want to put the thing, I can give you time. Do you need the headphones? No. No? Okay, good. I understood from what you said that you count with cooperation with youth to continue the program. But I wanted to know how much Switzerland is actually investing not only in the formulation of security measures, but also in the implementation and monitorization of how they work. So how is it being checked if this is actually working or if youth are suffering less violence or not? That's all. Over to you.
Alors, je peux pas vraiment répondre à la question.
Well, actually, I cannot reply to this question, Buffet. It is a pilot project. Therefore, it's not developed by the government. There are projects that have been proposed by different professionals, different pilot projects that actors or stakeholders present to us, and we support the development of the project or the tool. So we work on the innovation and we analyze also the potential that the project has. That is, once the project is concluded, would it be further developed or not? So we analyze these kinds of things. The result can be positive or negative. Now, if the result is positive, it can be multiplied and it can be used by other institutions and at a national level. Now, there is a last condition, and that is the scientific assessment. So we finance the project up to an 80% in order to implement the project, analyze the project, publish it, and put it into practice. So what we do is to guarantee what you have just suggested, right? To have scientific basis, but we don't have the results yet.
Mr. Banchuk, I was visiting your country and I had the pleasure to meet you. And it was amazing because you were reforming your justice system while you are currently be confronted to the war. And I just want to know how we can make, justice that is very child sensitive while we are dealing with the war that is really impacting other systems. Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's true, and also it was a pleasure to meet with you during your visit to Ukraine, and also nobody before this moment mentioned about the war in Ukraine, but it's happened first time after the end of Second World War, when in Europe happened the war. It's a full-scale aggression against Ukraine. And also the amount, for your better understanding, it's for example, we have more than 4 million people, Ukrainians, who seek the temporary protection in European Union. It's mostly women with children. We have added to this amount of people, it's more than 4.5 million internally displaced person inside of Ukraine. And you can imagine how it's hard for us, for not only for the state, for the society, to deal with this problem. And for us, all the war and what happened with this during this full-scale aggression of Russia, it's the main problem for Ukraine and for our future. And and also for all of Ukrainians, also personally for me, this effect this war has, because it's a few minutes. For example, 1 year ago, what happened? That it happened 8th of July. That the Russian rocket damaged the central hospital, children's hospital in Kiev. But my wife is a doctor who worked and till now is working there. And also in that time was my daughter also in this hospital. And what Russian army and Russian would like to find in the children's hospital. And it happened every day in Ukraine, such horrible things. And that's why we have, for example, the 700 children who killed during this war, and also thousands of children departed from Russian Federation, and that's why International Criminal Court announced the decision about the the order of arrest of Vladimir Putin, who is the leader of this process. But again, it's only for this picture, and but this time of war, it's time for us not to spend a lot of time what we made before this full-scale aggression of different discussion. It's time for us to make reform faster. And that's why, for example, during the wartime, during the Warsaw martial law, the Ukrainian parliament ratified the Istanbul Convention. Before that time, many years, we had hard discussion in our traditional society. It's how, because we have the term in the gender, how for our societies, during this we ratify and we implement the legislation of implementation of this convention. Also we implemented legislation, the provision of Lanzarote Convention about the sexual abuse and protection of the children. And also why I mentioned about not to spend more time for discussion, that we, during the war, started many pilot projects to increase level of or increase the level of protection on children. For example, a colleague, a representative of Council of Europe mentioned the Barnahus Center. In Ukraine, we covered, during the war, half of territory of Ukraine on this center. It's in 13 regions of Ukraine, 13 it's a half of region of Ukraine, we established, it's with support of international partners, UNICEF mostly, but we created this Barnahus Center, and now we know that according to statistic data, we support more than 100 and 500 children in this and provide the complex protect and service for children who is victim or witness of a crime in this Barnahus Center. Also, and again, we create without the law. It's a pilot project, but we also create the register of psychologists. It's psychologists who the investigator or prosecutor or judge provide to children who interview during the procedure. And we have now in this register about 300 psychologists, and during the implementation of this pilot project, about 5,000 of children who victim or witness of this case also received support from this psychologist. Also, we continue to provide the pilot project of for restorative justice. It's another part of our work. We try to also to protect to give more possibility to children who commit the crime, and also not to sentence them to imprisonment. It's to as a result of this restorative justice project to give alternative type of sanctions, and also through probation, and that's why our experience shows that if we have the goal to protect the children, also we could find sources for this, and also and our view is to adopt the legislation later, because now we have to protect our children in this situation of hard war, and we hope with support of our partner, with international community, we could stop Russia in this situation, and also to support Ukraine to stop this aggression of Russian Federation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. I am sure that you need to react. Yeah. And I can tell you, I spent 1 week in Ukraine 1 month ago or 2 months ago, and I can really testify that what is important, despite the war was not an excuse, and really the reform were going. It's not an easy task, but because people are duly committed. So it's really important, the strong signal sent. It's not starting by legislation and after adopting and after, it's acting while reforming. And I think this is very important. I give you the...
Well, at first, I wanted to congratulate you for all the projects that you're able to continue even in a war context. But I understand that they are harder. It's a harder task to do when there's a war going on. So in this sense, I would like to ask you if you consider that the international system, like the international justice system, incapacity of intervening in the conflict, would you consider that an act of violence against children who come in contact with the justice system in Ukraine?
You can repeat international justice.
Yeah, if you think that the incapacity of the international justice system of intervening in the conflict is an act of an act of violence against children who come in contact with the justice system in Ukraine.
Thank you. If I'm correct, understand you that I already mentioned that we are waiting for this procedure in International Criminal Court. And it's the first time in Europe when this court and the special prosecutor in this court announced the decision of arrest of the leader of Russian Federation. And this case is about the departure of Ukrainian children. And we know that in this case we have situation according to statistics about the thousands of these children. And also we hope that this process of establish, with support of Council of Europe, the special tribunal against this aggression also was this case, because we know that, for example, it's also was under the consideration of this special tribunal, because what I mentioned, the Children's Hospital, it's only one example, because my wife worked there, and in that time, because it was summertime, was my daughter there, because it's a summer holiday. But in Ukraine, we have thousands of premises destroyed by Russians. It's a hospital, schools, other social infrastructure, and we hope that all of this evidence also, and without international community, with support of European Union, Council of Europe, and United Nations, Ukraine alone has not choice to deal with this. Only with your support we could, and it again, it's not only for us justice, it's only for the future, to protect other countries for other and children in other situations, and we also to have to show for the future that world is not the place for aggression, because again that we know in this situation in Europe is so hard situation, and Ukrainian experience show this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I turn to Pakistan now. And you are doing a lot regarding, in a federal country. And I just want to hear from you, because how justice system, and you have many examples in your country, move from a punitive approach to a child-centered preventive model. Knowing, and it was highlighted this morning, that you have many children who are propelled in the juvenile, are in contact with law because of socio-economic problem, because of risky behavior, because of many issues. Over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm no child expert. I'm just a judge of the Supreme Court. I'll share some of my inputs, how I look at child justice, you see. So to me, if I could just start, and I'm so glad that the young ladies with us, can I have your name again? Lex. So Lex is here.
It's Lux, L-U-X, and Lux. I am non-binary. I go by they, them pronouns.
Lux, right. So thank you, Lux. You're here. So whatever I say, if I'm wrong, correct me, because you're at the heart of justice, not me.
She's correcting justice.
Yes. So she's at the heart of it all, not me. So thank you for being here, and so that we can take child justice with children with us, you see. So, initially I just want to make a comment that child justice, to my mind, is all about paradigm shift in the mindset, you see. It's very important. As a judge, as I see it, I think we need to start thinking there is no such thing as my child, your child. Children are like global common. They're everybody's children. They're children of the planet. So Palestinian children are our children. Ukrainian children are our children. They're all our children. So we need to start thinking that way. It's not about your children and my children. That's very important. So we change our lens, you see. A child is not the property of the state or a parent or a nation. They are part of a shared human future. The common heritage of humanity, that's one big paradigm shift that we need to think of. The second thing that I want to make a comment on is that the future trustees of the earth, they are the future trustees of the earth, the planet. They'll be running the planet. So we owe it to them. Their well-being and their growth is important for our civilization. We need to keep children at the center stage because of that, for the very survival of our planet and future civilization. And my third intervention that I want to say it at the very beginning, I can't think of something more unjust, something more graver than to child justice than war itself. I just cannot accept that the ultimate violation of children's rights, there can be no child justice in a world that accepts war as inevitable. I just cannot accept that. Children are the first to suffer in a conflict, which is a war, and I think that is not acceptable. I want to go to Gaza. You see thousands of children killed, maimed, orphaned, schools, hospitals, homes systemically destroyed, psychological trauma on generational scale. Gaza's children wake not to childhood, but to rubble, fear, and silence. I mean, there can't be a more serious injustice to child justice than the war itself. So and that same case goes to Ukraine also. So I just want to say that it is very important, and I think it's a moral command, that if war creates orphans, maims future generations, then no war is just. No war, not for power, not for land, not for ideology. It's not worth it. So I think that's the ideological shift that one needs to keep in mind. We need to keep in mind that we must declare a childhood peace zone, and that cannot happen. So this is, initial comments on understanding how you look at child justice. But coming on to the punitive aspect, the thought is we should avoid child in contact with the law or in conflict with the law not to come to the court. There must be early interventions. They are very important. Early interventions are important at the community level. I think Melody, in her melodious manner, told us this earlier, that we must have early interventions at the school, at the community level, and there are a number of vulnerabilities that can be addressed at that level. Be it climate change related, be it gender related issues, they can be addressed at the early stage. So the first thing should be not to come to court at all. So that's one. The second concept would be that if you come to court, then we need to start thinking of a whole paradigm shift. The whole system, the entire justice system, I sit at the Supreme Court in Pakistan, it's adult-centric. It's paternalistic, it's maybe patriarchal. I come from a society which has a patriarchy, which has a paternalistic system. We need to undo that. We need to start thinking that children are at the heart of the child justice. They are at the center of the entire justice system. So child-centered system has to be brought in. So this adult-centric system has to go. And we have to come to terms with children, have their own mind and space. So I think it's very important that the Supreme Court or any Supreme Court in the world must listen to children. We must bring them in court. We have started that in Pakistan now. We want children coming into the court, telling us about their views on the question, telling us that we might be wrong about it. She made an excellent example that if we talk about, the lady earlier said, so if we are designing a park or designing any urban development, we don't listen to children. So it's about time that in a public interest litigation, a constitutional matter, in any matter that comes to court, we must think if it affects children, they must be there. They must be represented through children-led organizations or the children themselves. So this adult-centric system, this paternalistic view, which is inherent in us because that's how we've been brought up, has to be undone. Again, a mindset issue which we need to deal with. The second early intervention is also very important, and that is that we must look at the alternative dispute resolution system in the world. We must mediate these matters before they come to court. ADR could be ideal for children. So that also part falls within the domain of early intervention. Before bringing them to court, please mediate these matters. Don't bring them in contact with the court or in conflict with the law that comes to us. And I just want to also refer to a famous notable academic, Tonia Germain, and she said that child rights, she talks about child rights and justice reforms. Her work emphasizes that justice system must adapt to the developmental, emotional, and cognitive realities of the children. A judge must understand child psychology, and I tell you, I have no idea what it is till I read about it. I think judges need to understand what child psychology is all about. It's not protecting children, it's actually making them, nourishing them. It's to nurture them. That is what justice system should be. It's not about preventing any injustice, but making them grow, bringing them welfare. You see, well-being has to be looked at. And that's what these academics are talking about. The famous Martha Nussbaum talks about, capacities. It's very important that the capabilities have to be looked at. We need to develop them into nourishing individuals who are nurtured, healthy individuals. So it's not about just preventing anything wrong, but looking at all these new things. So justice must adapt to the child, not the child to the justice system. It's very important. That concept needs to be brought in. So we must keep in mind that children are not miniature adults. They have their own space, they have their own being, they have their own thoughts. We have Malala Yousafzai, we have Greta Thunberg. They're making a lot of sense. Malala Yousafzai wins the Nobel Prize at age 17. Let's not discard children. We need to bring them into our thought process. This paternalistic thought has to go, and we have to bring them in. So the legal process must bring children into the thought process. We need to bring them into court. We need to start listening to them. We must hear what they have to say. So no progress, no decision can be made unless we've echoed that thought with the children of the world today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your speech. You talked a lot about bringing children into the justice system in a way of structuring it and having more intervention and more participation of children in this. And I wanted to ask if there is any practices in Pakistan that are already starting to make sure that children participate in this, or if there aren't, can you suggest one there should be?
Yes, that's a very good question. I mean, recently, we were just waking up to child justice, if I must frankly confess. So yes, recently we just decided a matter where it was a custody matter and a family matter. So earlier, custody matters were talked to the parents, the father and the mother, and let's see who wants the children, but never attend to the children. So we, for the first time, reached out and we had a word with the children, the two children involved in the case, and we said, what are your wishes? And we had to get an expert in also, a psychologist, maybe a child expert, to understand the wishes of the child. So that's important. And now increasingly, we think we need to bring in child-led organizations, children who are making a difference in the country, to come onto the court and make a submission so that we hear their voices every time we decide something. So it's like essential element of decision making. Have we heard the voice of the child in making a decision? I think that's the paradigm shift.
Thank you. I turn now to Astrid from Columbia Institute of Family Welfare. And I had the pleasure also to work with you, and Columbia, hosted the first ministerial conference on ending violence against children past November. And more than 120 countries were attending. And many of them made pledge to end violence against children, even within the justice system. And also how justice system can contribute to prevent and, and address violence against children. I think because you are this Instituto de Bienestar Familiar, who is working with many, many key sectors: social, education, health, police, and justice. And we were discussing a lot since this morning that we need this articulation between the justice system and the other system. So based on what we discussed, what is going on in Colombia, I need to hear from you, based on the experience, how we can move forward.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to take part in this expert panel. This is so very enriching. Well, after the conference you mentioned, I should say several things happened, and I'm here to report on that. As regards the justice system, we just shuttered an institution which, in effect, what it did was it imprisoned children for a long time. It was basically a juvenile prison, which I could see from where I grew up, and that's where young offenders used to go, and we closed it down. And that was incredibly important for everyone. A lot of people asked us, why are you shutting that down? It is important, isn't it? Well, we beg to differ. In fact, I think any time an institution such as that one is closed down, we should celebrate. No teenager, no child should be imprisoned. That should be only a very, very last resort. And in many justice systems, if judges can make that decision, they do make that decision. We should achieve, however, a paradigm shift. Judges should prefer to make different decisions which don't cause children to be in prison. And so we're very, very happy that we closed down this institution in Colombia, because we think that no teenager, once again, should ever be imprisoned. They are victims, children. And so if one is a victim, one should be treated differently. You can't chuck them in a prison cell. And again, we got asked by many people how it was possible that we wanted to shut it down. Judges especially asked us, what are we supposed to do now that you've shut it down? Well, there are alternatives, we said. And now they know it is true. There are alternatives. We're currently debating a new bill of law in our parliament to reform our justice system so that it takes heed of restorative justice, one that, takes account of possible remedies which should be given to those who have been wronged, but a type of restorative justice which is not aimed at punishing children. And also, we're working on a different notion of justice, which we call therapeutic justice. Why? Because a lot of children from a very tender age have been exposed to horrible situations, really. They've been at a disadvantage ever since they were born. And they should be helped rehabilitate after they, commit a crime or make a mistake. Judges should know that. We call that therapeutic justice. We need to help them overcome their traumas after they make a mistake. So these are but a few of the things we have been doing in Colombia. But it's part of the reason why we're so excited to be here. We want to talk to other countries as well. Justice processes need to acknowledge remedies as a possible tool to be used for children, as well as therapeutic justice. Therapeutic justice for us is paramount. We don't want to see any more children in prison. We want to see children empowered, recognized as victims because they didn't have the opportunities they were supposed to. And that's pretty much the situation in Colombia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's really great to hear about the psychological support that you're doing instead of incarceration, and to support especially young people who are in contact with substances. And I would like to ask is there any plans, or if you personally would like to have any plans of including this psychological training in other parts of the system that come in contact with children, let that be in schools or security guards in shopping malls, like every person that can possibly come in contact with a child. Do you believe that they should have the psychological training?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. And we do have plans along those lines. But they aren't generic plans. So it's not only about training people, really. What we want to achieve, really, is a cultural change. Culture sometimes compels us to come up with a different sort of training plan by making people more sensitive, perhaps, by exposing them to music, art, theatre, making them more sensitive. Why am I telling you this? Because teenagers, children, challenge us to think a little differently. And I think art can help adults along those lines. So we want to expose people to the language of children, to the language of teenagers, and we have plans along those lines. But again, the main goal here is to sort of train officials to become more sensitive if they are to come in contact with children.
And I just want to ask you, how can probation, system prevent violence against children within the justice system? Ah yes, bien sûr, pardon.
Thank you for your question, for your invitation. En fait, la probation travaille assez peu avec les enfants. La probation, ce sont les sanctions.
Well, actually, we have sanctions or penalties and measures that allow us to make a transition in order to avoid jail, so that also children can get out of jail. Now, these alternatives are quite a good way to avoid pressure, to avoid having children outside of their environments. And within the environment, we're also giving them some measures in order to overcome the difficulties they are facing. So we are actually going out of the traditional system. We are anchored to that culture, actually, the culprit and sanctions culture. Now, we focus on how can we help the child, the young person, to overcome the hurdles. So we try to support them, understand what are their needs, and if the child can identify his needs. And we try to support the family, the environment, and establish a sort of a link with civil society institutions. Now, the government needs to take responsibility. We should understand better how children evolve. So we cannot perceive them as victims, as stakeholders, or as offenders. These children have experienced trauma, most likely, so we need to understand their situation so that we can find solutions with them, and this is something that we will work on. We speak a lot about risk assessment, and I do believe that we need to be careful. We need to work with the resources that we have, with the resources that children give us, and from that point on, we will establish other dynamics. So there's a lot to do in that sense. And especially when children face difficult situations. There are good frameworks, for example, the OECD, UNICEF, the Council of Europe, and so on and so forth. Now, we can use all these measures and frameworks to move forward and to promote children's rights.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution. I saw that you seemed very optimistic about the preparation that you were talking about. And I wanted to ask, in the long run, what kind of results do you expect from this kind of approach?
Mais je pense que c'est faire le choix de la vie, ce qui est quand même...
Well, I think we need to make decisions and we need to choose life. I've been working as a director in jails, and I have decided to get out of that system because it's a totalitarian system. And it is very difficult to have that dynamic in jail. Now, if we can avoid imprisonment, we should. That is the best option. And as my colleague said earlier, we need to prevent children from entering into the justice system, and we need to prevent child imprisonment because it's destructive. We need to work with minors, we need to work with children, but also with young adults. We have said that earlier, the brain development of children is particular. It's said that sometimes that at 13 years old, children find an emotional stability, but it is a really long process. So we need to accept that it is a long process indeed, and we need to be respectful towards children in this sense. We need to bear these in mind in order to find solutions. I have a lot to say, actually, when it comes to restorative justice, but I see that everyone is very tired, so that will be all on my side.
Sorry, you don't hear me. I am tired also. Maria Teresa, I just want to ask you about, I know that you have a priority, is la protección de los niños y niñas en el entorno digital.
The protection of children in digital environments. Well, thank you very much. And first of all, thank you for organizing this Congress. We have all been very thankful, so let's cut to the chase. we were saying that children don't take an active part in justice, and we spoke about preventions. Now, there are many ways to prevent adults. Sorry, we should act differently, you know, because children copy us. And these kinds of behaviors that children have are just copy of what they see in adults. Now, we could prevent by protecting the digital environment of children. In Spain, we have a draft law, and the prosecution has worked on this. The relationship between children and new technologies and social media, TikTok, WhatsApp, and so on and so forth, has increased the number of crimes by minors, children that have not even reached the 14 years old of age. In Spain, that is the age up to when children would, enter into a justice system. And I'm worried about two things. Grooming, because we may have abuse in schools, but then there is the problem of social media. We have abuse 24/7 and at a larger scale. I am a prosecutor, specialized in children, and I coordinate this at a national level. We have analyzed different data, and we realized something, which is that abuse in children is dramatic, especially because of social media. Now, when it comes to new technologies, I'm also very worried about access to porn. All crimes that happen through social media have increased, but also sexual harassment and sexual crimes have increased also because of social media. And victims are normally girls between 10 and 14 years old. There have always been crimes, sexual crimes, but now porn is playing a role, an educational role, which it's not possible, and this is not fiction. We have more than 50% of children, males, that have access to porn, and 40% of these children have copied porn scenes. Now, what happens? Well, when we work with girls that have been victims of these sexual abuses, we realize that they have sexual behaviors that are not adequate at all to their age. Also, actually, they don't understand what a free sexual relationship should be, what consent should be, and what not. And this is of great concern.
You mentioned that there has been insane growth in peer-to-peer violence, and I wanted to ask, in Spain specifically, what has been done, for the child that is the victim and for the child that is the aggressor in this case?
Vamos a ver, en España
Well, in Spain, we have legislation that could be improved eventually, of course, but that takes into account secondary victimization. Now, this is paramount. We are trying to make sure that victims do not have to repeat at the police station or at the hospital or at the court the same declaration. So we try to avoid this process. And this is usually led by specialists, psychologists, Barnahus system, and so on and so forth. Now, there is another very important topic. When a sexual abuse happens, there are girls that are minors, but also there are young adults over 18 years old. So in that sense, we are trying to improve the process, and then there is anonymization. We need to demand responsibilities to the media, because victims need to be anonymous. We cannot provide data. We cannot talk about the school when this happened. We cannot talk about the parents. We cannot provide any sort of information. Now, this is fundamental. Also, when it comes to child justice, we have remedies, we have mediation. This is very important for the victim. We need remedies. The victim needs to feel that something is being done. It can be a psychological remedy, for instance, asking or saying that the offender is sorry. We need to avoid further suffering for the victim.
Thank you so much. Before I will give the floor for concluding remark to my moderator, I just want to tell you that this session was not prepared, and I want to really thank all these people, because we managed. They are reacting spontaneously, interactively. They were not following the question, and it was amazing. And I just want to tell you, we need people who are in the system of justice who are duly committed. And I want to thank a lot my co-moderators, because I told her, we move ahead, ask the question you want, and we are here. So over to you for the concluding remark, and big applause to all of you.
Okay, thank you everyone for being here. I know there's been a lot of thankfulness already. But I wanted to thank something very specific. I wanted to thank the possibility of having me as a Brazilian non-binary person speaking in a Congress of this dimension. I will give my remarks as a speech. I hope it's not too dramatic for you guys or boring. I would say that we need to talk about justice. The largest single-day death toll in the last year was caused by Israeli attacks. That is not a slogan or a headline meant to divine. That is a real sentence that was said by Catherine Russell, which is the UNICEF executive director. This is an echo of the world we live in right now. This is a sentence carried on the backs of broken bodies that is etched in the silence of empty classrooms and crumbled homes. It's not whispered, but screamed through the ruins of Rafah and the ash of Gaza's playgrounds. To everyone here present, and to all children around the world, it is an honor to address you today on an issue that lies at the very heart of justice, human rights, and the moral fabric of our society, that is preventing and responding to violence affecting children in the justice systems. We need to talk about justice, and not the word engraved in marble courthouses, but the living, breathing promise of it. Not justice as theory, but as refuge. Not as a rhetoric, but as rescue. We have to talk about justice. If we define justice systems as a network of laws, institutions, and processes that exist to maintain social order and protect rights, we can also conclude that we have failed. We have failed Palestinian children, and we have failed all of the others. The genocide in Palestine is not an exception. It is merely an exposure of a global failure. We know the most effective way to protect children is to keep them out of the justice system. Yet every year, millions of children come into contact with it. Whether as victims, witnesses, alleged offenders, or due to child protector concerns, over 7 million children are held in various forms of detention globally every year. It is of utmost importance that we address this as a reality that needs to be changed. What are we truly protecting when our systems allow children to be harmed in the name of justice? Justice is not a verdict, it's not a gavel drop, it's the moment we choose restoration instead of punishment. Restorative justice is the radical act of believing children should be understood before being condemned. It is not about excusing harm, it is about acknowledging the pain, restoring dignity, and rebuilding trust. We have models in countries like New Zealand, Norway, or Sierra Leone, where the priority is reintegration instead of incarceration. We have proof that it reduced crime rates. Why would we deny the best approach? Not ignoring the importance of data collection, we have to remind ourselves that each number is a human being, a real child. Every child that ends up in the justice system is a victim. Let that be a direct victim of abuse or a victim of systemic conditions. No child should be deprived of their childhood. I like to think that we should build our justice systems according to what we believe our society should look like. That meaning, if we don't want our children to kill, then we don't kill them. We say no to the death penalty. If we don't want abusive people, we don't create abusive environments. It's really important that the state ensures justice over punishment, rehabilitation instead of revenge. And justice is not gathering meeting rooms of adults and making agreements. Justice is going outside and listening to children, letting us speak and make decisions. Look around you. How many children are here? How many come from the Global South? We need to do better. For every Brazilian child that's incarcerated in inhumane conditions, and every child migrant killed in France, and all of the children in conflict zones, we need to do better. As we gather here in Madrid, let us commit to transforming justice systems from sites of trauma into spaces of protection, empowerment, and renewal. Let us ensure that every child, no matter their background or circumstances, encounters justice not as a threat, but as a promise. Let us talk about justice.
Pero es que la gente ya se está yendo. La gente ya se está yendo.
Vamos, sí, eso es lo que le digo.
¿Sí?
Por eso están yendo, pero...
Sí. Me das gracias. Nos queda una persona para escuchar, que no soy yo. Una persona para escuchar, ¿vale?
So let's take a moment, please. We have a last speaker. Just 5 minutes, and then you will be set free. By the way, remember that you have to give back the headsets to our volunteers, or you can also give the headset back in the information points.
Tengo que dar paso.
Okay. If you don't mind, we've got another speaker coming up.
No. No. ¿El qué? Sí, claro.
Llamamos a UNICEF, ¿ok?
Ok. Pues voy a hacer la presentación.
Okay, let me just introduce our last speaker of the day for the closing of today's session. After that, you'll be free. You can go anywhere you like. We've got a reception put together. I'd like to welcome Ashima Sen Gupta, Director of Child Protection at UNICEF. Big round of applause for her. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm really sorry to keep you from your cocktails. But if I may, at the end of the day one, I do just want to take 2 minutes, and I promise you it's going to be 2 minutes. First of all, at the end of the first day of the conference, thank you. I do want to take the opportunity from all of us to actually thank and congratulate the government of Spain, particularly the Ministry of Childhood, for hosting this 5th World Congress and the Global Initiative on Justice with Children. I do acknowledge and really thank all of you for coming from so far away. And the cocktail is awaiting. But because we are going to have a slightly different format tomorrow, I do want to share some information. as we talked about, there will be several products that will be released tomorrow during the parallel session on operationalizing the Reimagine Justice for Children agenda. As I said, one of them is the UN Joint Advocacy Brief on deprivation of liberty of children in the administration of justice. This outlines the rights, economic and scientific arguments on why detention is harmful, costly, and not effective in reducing crimes. It will also share promising practices. The second, we are launching the global and regional estimates, and some of you have come to ask us about this. We are launching these estimates for 2024 and trends on the number of children deprived of liberty in the administration of justice. While there is good news, there is, of course, huge disparities across regions, and data remains challenging in many countries. Finally, we are also launching a series of technical notes on the following Justice for Children topics. And you would also be able to hear from some of the countries and regions. So one, children whose parents and primary caregivers are deprived of liberty. Second, child-friendly legal aid. Third, armed violence and justice for children. Fourth, mental health and psychosocial support for children in the justice system. Fifth, customary justice for children. Sixth, role of social service workforce in the justice system. And then in the next phase, we will also have 4 more, which are on access to justice for child victims, children in civil proceedings, child-friendly courts and proceedings, and legal empowerment and justice for children. I do hope that with all the work that UNICEF and all our partners have done and contributed, these will actually not only provide the rights and economic arguments to bolster our advocacy, but also give concrete actions we must all do based on the programming practices therein. So tomorrow at 4 to 5:30 p.m., you will hear more about these global products, and you will also hear of some of the country and regional good practices. With that, I would like to invite you all to the cocktail area. Thank you.